This is a reading of the article Labor Representation by James Connolly, published in the Workers' Republic newspaper on August 27, 1898, transcribed by the James Connolly Society in 1997, and currently hosted by the Marxists Internet Archive, where you can read this, as well as many more texts by many Marxists of all sorts, and where I'm currently reading it now. Before I begin, I'll say that the web page that this article is hosted on includes two different sections, the first of which is much shorter than the second, and seems to be an excerpt from a 1903 article entitled Unpatriotic, that was also written by James Connolly. In this video, I will not be reading that small section. I will only be reading the larger section that seems to have actually been written and published in 1898, and later on, I'll record this small section as well. Anyways, enough of my introduction, on with the text. The action taken upon the Local Government Act by the representatives of the trade unionists of Dublin is perhaps the most important step yet taken by the organised workers in Ireland. We do not, however, labour under the belief that the delegates so chosen will be socialists, or consciously in favour of socialist principles. On the contrary, we are quite prepared to find each and every one of these representatives solemnly repudiating the taint of socialism. But we do believe, and not only believe, but know that every working man elected to the Municipal Council of Dublin, if he be true to his class when elected, will find that every step he takes in the council in furtherance of the interests of his class must of necessity take the form of an application of socialist principles. The direct employment of labor by the municipality and consequent abolition of contracting, the rigid enforcement of sanitary laws, reductions of the hours of labor, increase of the wages of the lower grades of workers, and reduction of the absurdly high salaries of superior officials, exceptional taxation of unlet property, in short, every measure for the betterment of the condition of the workers which our working class representatives in the corporation could urge for adoption, has long since been adopted into the palliative program of the socialists, and is, in greater or less degree, the result of socialist principles applied to the working of our civic life. Moreover, in pressing forward even the mildest of these reforms, it will be found that the representatives of property in the corporation will, irrespective of party, line up solidly against reform, and our friends who imagine that they will secure the cooperation of the master class in safeguarding the interests of labor will be sadly deceived. It is because we realize these facts that we are unqualifiedly in favor of this proposed action of the Dublin trade unions. When the worker has so far advanced as to realize that his master's interests are antagonistic to his own, that the master class use every weapon from parliament to prison to maintain their position against what they consider the encroachment of their serfs, then we have no doubt that the next step in the intellectual development of the worker will be to consider whether it is wise to tolerate longer a class in society which requires to be watched so constantly and guarded against so vigilantly, whether there is indeed any useful function performed by the capitalist and landlord class which the organized workers cannot perform without them, whether the ownership of property cannot be vested in the organized community, and the conduct of industry entrusted to our trade unions, who could surely furnish men who would organize production and distribution in the interests of all much better than it is at present done by a class animated solely by considerations of profit. When the logic of events forces this question on the Dublin workers, as it surely will, we believe that they will not fail to answer it aright, and that the answer will be well for our hopes of a socialist republic. We are trade unionists, but we are more than trade unionists. The trade unionist who is only a trade unionist is to the socialist what the believer in constitutional monarchy is to a republican. The constitutional monarchist wishes to limit the power of the king, but still wishes to have a king. The republican wishes to abolish kingship and puts his trust in the people. The trade unionist wishes to limit the power of the master, but still wishes to have masters. The socialist wishes to have done with masters and pins his faith to the collective intelligence of a democratic community. We, as socialist Republicans, adopt in each case the more logical course and bend our energies to the abolition of that principle of evil, whose influence our moderate friends would seek only to minimize. A socialist republic is the application to agriculture and industry, to the farm, the field, the workshop, of the democratic principle of the Republican ideal. We repeat then, we hail with joy this action of the Dublin trade unions. Our candidates will joyfully cooperate with them, for if they do not become lackeys of the capitalist class, they must inevitably become allies of the socialist Republican.